Hello everyone, Ember Power here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one, I'm going to be taking a look at some Blastoise EX decks, no, it said GX there, Blastoise EX decks from the Pokemon card set 151, which is basically our next special set that I believe is releasing in late September. So it's a bit of a weird spot we're in with this set because Japan already has this set, they've had it since June the 16th. So they will essentially have this like format that we will never have. They will have this set before they get the cards from Rule of the Black Flame, whereas we will get Rule of the Black Flame in the form of Obsidian Flames in August before we get these cards. So there might be something that gets revealed in Obsidian Flames that could directly impact these decks, but we won't know until, of course, those cards are revealed and we get to see what decks come out of that set as well. So do kind of bear that in mind. Also, I'm only going to be taking a look at one deck today here that is basically using Blastoise EX as a direct attacker. And what I necessarily mean by that is all the other decks that we'll look at today, they are all essentially variants of Baxcalibur or Chien. So, do bear that in mind. If you're not a fan of those decks, then maybe this isn't the video for you. But basically, just looking at some key translations here, Blastoise EX is a very tanky boy. 330 HP and the ability Solid Shell means that it's very hard to KO this guy. Now you think about a Cramorant that can only do 110 damage in one attack. Blastoise is basically cackling at that point because it's not even a 3-shot. So yeah, Blastoise is definitely a very tanky boy. Even stuff like Arceus V-Star, which can dish out 200 theoretically, but then Double Turbo usually takes it down to 180. Solid Shell will then take it down to 150. So then it's not even a 2-shot at that point without modifiers, and whereas Twin Cannons can actually one-hit KO an Arceus. So definitely some solid merits for Blastoise, and I honestly think it could be pretty decent. It's also got Irida as well, because usually stage 2s, we can write them off as being too awkward to get up and set up into play. But the fact that you can use Irida to get this going is definitely an appealing aspect, and of course, because we only need 2 energy to use Twin Cannons, we should be able to also incorporate some Raihan plays into there as well. So as mentioned before, Twin Cannons doing 280 damage if you choose to discard 2 basic water energy. Pretty easy requirement to meet thanks to stuff like energy retrieval and superior energy retrieval. So yeah, just seems like a very solid card overall, to be honest. The only thing that I'm a bit bothered about, to be honest, is actually the retreat cost of 3 is a bit annoying because we don't have any tools currently to help with switching. Hopefully we get something like that in Obsidian Flames, but yeah. Wait, there's actually a big balloon, come to think of it. There's a big balloon in Pokemon card 151 that will give a stage 2 free retreat, but seems a bit of a waste since it's only going to give Blastoise and Baxcalibur free retreat. So just another key translation to look at here is Mew EX, 180 HP, so kind of on the weak side to be honest for a basic EX Pokemon, but does have a pretty impressive ability and a really cool attack, Genome Hack and Restart respectively. Restart says once in your turn, you may draw cards until you have 3 in your hand. So it's just a nice little bit of draw power. And then Genome Hack says choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and use it this attack. So, Giratina V-Star, you can just copy Lost Impact effectively and want to KO it. So there's just some nice little attacks like that you can copy. So definitely a worthy tech to consider. And of course, we can easily power this up using stuff like Baxcalibur. So just first up, this is the true attacking Blastoise deck if you really don't want to play it with anything like Baxcalibur, Chien, Palkia. This is the list for you, I guess. This is the only list I could see as well that was just focusing Blastoise as the main attacker. Using the Gardevoir, the Refinement Curlia, and the Shining Arcana Gardevoir. So essentially, Curlia, of course, is here for our draw engine, and then the Shining Arcana Gardevoir can allow us to hopefully accelerate some basic water energy from the top of our deck. We do only need 2 energy, but Shining Arcana Gardevoir can also draw some more cards anyway, so pretty decent to be honest. Gallade can also help find the niche supporters that we play, such as Raihan and Boss's Orders, so pretty solid overall. We also got 1 Mew to help find the items that we need, 1 Radiant Greninja for some draw power, and 1 Manaphy for some bench protection. Pretty self-explanatory list. The only thing I kind of dislike is the 3-1-3 split of the stage 2 main attacker. To be honest, I'd much rather have 4 Squirtle just to be on the safe side, but I guess you don't really need 4 Squirtle if you're probably not going to make it through all 3 Blastoise, but yeah, that aspect seems a little bit sketchy in my opinion, but maybe there's just not enough room in this deck for, for 4 Squirtle, but still something that I would definitely consider if I was building this deck. Next up is we've got this kind of like bog standard turbo build of Palkia Chien with the Blastoise teched in. This is kind of a heavy Blastoise line compared to some of the other lists that we might see, so it's worth bearing in mind that this deck is definitely trying to focus a bit more on the Blastoise. And because it's not playing Baxcalibur, it does mean that all our rare candy efforts can be focused on Blastoise as well. So 2 Chien and then a 2-2 split Palkia. No, nothing like Bibarel because we're just trying to, we do actually need deck spaces for trainers and energy, so it is kind of a problem when you're trying to stuff in loads of different Pokemon. 1 Luminion though is always nice. Do like to see Luminion. Radiant Greninja is definitely there for the draw power and the option to snipe. And then of course Mew is definitely a popular pick in Japan and is just a really good card overall for helping you locate stuff like Battle VIP Pass as well as rare candy. So pretty solid list. Is it my favorite of the bunch? Probably not, because I just hate playing 3 rare candy in most of my decks where I really need to rely on them. But it is playing a War Turtle admittedly, so at least we have some other outs to be able to set up a Blastoise on the bench, but still, not sure about this list, but it should still be pretty fun to give it a go at the very least. Next up is we have a bit more of a meme-ish side of things. We're not playing any Chien or Baxcalibur. This is quite literally just a 4-3 Squirtle Blastoise line. And then a 1-1 Palkia, which is a bit flippant, 1 Luminion, 1 Frog, 1 Manaphy, and then a 2-2 split of Gossifleur Eldegoss. So if you don't remember what this Eldegoss does, basically it says once in your turn you can search your deck for 2 basic energy cards and put them into your hand. So this is kind of like decent synergy with Blastoise's attack, which you need to discard water energy to do the damage, and just attach to other Blastoise to set them up. So it is pretty solid in that regard. However, it is a stage 1 that's not drawing you any cards, so this deck is very vulnerable to stuff like Path to the Peak and Iono plays, which I guess is true of like all Palkia decks and Chien decks in general, but yeah. A little bit sketch, honestly. I know I wasn't a major fan of the last list that we just looked at, but this one could honestly be just a wee bit worse. Definitely not sold on the idea of using Gossifleur, but hey, maybe this person's onto something. Could be pretty cool. Also playing a pair of the gloves, I believe, that says you do 30 more damage to dark weak Pokemon, or just dark types in general. It could be dark or psychic. I forget which gloves those are, but the gloves in the bottom left corner, someone will have to point them out for me, what gloves those are. But I believe it's for Mew and Gardevoir, which is interesting. It does mean that Blastoise can get a 1-hit KO on Gardevoir if that's the case. So yeah, pretty interesting to see that. But then we have this last list. Oh, second last list, never mind. Second last list is going to be Blastoise with Chien and Baxcalibur. So no Palkia, because really running all 3 is just kind of like a big no-no at this point. But Blastoise, Chien and Baxcalibur, so no Palkia, so I guess the 4th one was the one we're not running. But we also aren't playing any Bibarel for draw power, so we played 2 copies of Mew EX with the Restart ability and the Genome Hack attack, which is interesting, to be honest. It does give you the option to have some potentially devastating turns against decks which have attacks that you would want to copy, which is cool, and that's nice to see. Still, I'm not terribly sure Mew is the correct way to go. It's a nice pivot as well at the same time. But of course, having, 180 HP makes it very, very fragile. Worth noting, however, this deck is actually running that balloon that we mentioned at the start, the one that gives it stage 2 free retreat. That will help with Baxcalibur because Baxcalibur it's a bit of a bulky boy and has 2 retreat cost, which is annoying. So having that tool card is definitely a major help. But honestly, not like overly sold on the amount of one-offs in this deck and how flippant some of the rare candy lines are, but yeah, should be pretty interesting. And if you're a fan of Mew and you want to try out Blastoise as well, maybe this is a good place to start for you. But then last but not least is going to be Blastoise Chien with Baxcalibur Bibarel. Sounds a bit of a mouthful. But no Palkia again, we're just focusing on Blastoise and Chien as our main forms of attacking. It's a 2-2 split of Blastoise, so we are quite thin, but we are playing 4 rare candy, so the whole idea here is we should be able to bypass War Turtle. There is no level ball anyway, so there's no real point in playing it besides that, so seems pretty decent overall. Nothing too crazy about this list. The 3-3 split of Frigibax is, what you'd imagine really. 2 Chien because you don't need more than 2. Only thing this deck really lacks is maybe a proper 1-prize attacker, which is something I've noticed about these lists, is they don't seem to have room for like the Kyogre or Wishy-Washy even, but maybe you just don't need it if you have Baxcalibur, I guess, to attack and throw out the 130, or even Radiant Greninja to attack with, so maybe it's not necessary, but still interesting list. Also, another one that I've noticed that it was the same as the one before, also running Lake QT. The one that says if your Pokemon have Water Energy attached to them, it take 20 less damage from attacks. Interesting stadium to see. Also means Blastoise is just that bit more tanky. So you're taking minus 50 at that point. Yeah, seems pretty solid to be honest. Also, his list I think is running Vitality Band in the bottom left corner. That looks like Vitality Band. I don't think that's Choice Belt. If that is Choice Belt, you have to correct me on that one, but that does look like Vitality Band down there, which again is interesting. Like, why Vitality Band over Choice Belt? Choice Belt honestly would just make more sense, allowing 280 to reach into the likes of 310, so that's pretty solid against Mew and stuff. So interesting list nonetheless. But yeah, it's been Emma Power. Let me know what you think about Blastoise down below. Do you think it'll help out Chien Power decks in any way, shape, or form? And yeah, it's been Emma Power, and thank you for watching.